Hello. For this article review and reflection, I decided to look at Defending a Teacher's Right to Disconnect by Yochai Terada. This article was near and dear to my heart because I find disconnecting to be very difficult. I always have my phone out. I have my emails for work hooked up to my cell phone. I direct my office phone to my cell phone when I'm out of the office. And I just always find it difficult to disconnect. For me, it works. I enjoy connecting. And I enjoy the real time of connecting. But I do see where it becomes a problem and where it becomes a burnout. So just to kind of share a little personally, I shared in my previous post about how technology changed my life as far as providing access for individuals with severe and profound disabilities to have access to alternate augmentative communication devices so that their voices could be heard when I was a teacher in Kingsport City Schools. And then fast forward to moving to Ohio, I worked in a rural school and I had done Google Classroom. It was something that a lot of teachers weren't doing, but I found it to be really beneficial because I was able to connect with my students and have the Google Classroom app on my phone and able to connect with my students anytime I needed to. Now, there is a flip side to that. I remember distinctly taking my son to the doctor because he was very sick and being in the waiting room. And at that time, I was getting, I think I had an essay due that day and I had to take a sick day and stuff. So I had an essay due for my students. And of course, when that is the case and a due date comes up, then you start getting more and more questions. It's like, why didn't you ask this sooner? But, kids are kids. So I was getting messages through the Google Classroom on my cell phone when really I needed to be attending to family things. So that is always very difficult for me, understanding that boundary. And taking that time back and setting those limits. It's a struggle. It's real. It gives a huge burnout rate, I think, on education in general and educators in general, because it's like you're always on. When we had the pandemic, the lines were blurred so much between, personal devices and personal home life and things going on, your career and stuff. I mean, you're doing your Google Classroom where you're teaching your lessons from inside your own home. For me, I actually held an IEP meeting where the parent came to my house and sat on the porch and we talked through the window and had the IEP meeting that way because they didn't have the internet access to do a Google Meets or a Zoom or anything like that. But what I really liked about this article in particular was I like how it talked about how it brings into light truly the way your health and mental well-being are compromised by not being able to unplug and not being able to disconnect, okay? I think that does take a heavy toll, and I think it does contribute to anxiety. We were just on vacation last week, and I was checking my email constantly when that was time to be on vacation and not necessarily be doing that. Or, for example, I had a question about a grant that our provost had to ask me, and he didn't realize I was on vacation, and he Teams me, and I was in line at the security at the airport. So, I mean, things like that. But I did like that because I was able to answer his question and get it back to him really quickly. So, I mean, that's such a blessing for me. But I have to know when to unplug and when to disconnect so that you don't get burned out. Another thing was, I only have a couple more seconds before this is up, but I wanted to talk about things to consider, modeling better practices, and then giving myself permission to disconnect, and then keeping my cell phone clean of work-related things. I think before when I was a teacher. I probably should have done that more than as a grants officer now. I don't feel that it's absolutely necessary to disconnect like I should have when I was teaching or when I was in K-12, public K-12. It just seemed like you got burned out so much quicker. So that's all I have right now. But yeah, I really like the article. I could really relate to the article, and it gave some good pointers.